Hello, everyone. RJ here. I hope you are having a wonderful night. So, I wanted to try something with you all today. And I just want to say no. And I want you to take a moment and feel into that. What is it that you feel? How do you respond when you hear that? No. Are you tensing in places? Does none of your physiology change? Does your heart beat a little faster? What happens? Just feel into that. And I wanted to ask you that because today I want to talk to you about what your fear of no is costing you. And there are a lot of people who do not have really any type of relationship with the word no. They don't really use it. They don't really want to hear it. They kind of try to avoid it at all costs. And when we do that, we can miss some pretty great things. Um, Mainly because one, if we have this fear of no in terms of saying no to other people, what begins to happen is our schedules, our days, our lives essentially start to be taken over by other people, right? Because usually um, and there may be some things that we want to say no to or we're not really interested in doing, but we say yes to anyway. And so we end up with a lot of stuff on our calendar that shouldn't really be there. And we put ourselves in situations where we're likely to be unhappy, unseen, or even worse, sometimes we put ourselves in danger with that, right? Um, Depending upon how extreme one's aversion to telling someone no is, right? Because we may be doing um, things that are just detrimental to our health because we'd rather do that and damage ourselves than to say no and hurt, upset, or disappoint someone. And in terms of having a fear of saying of no in terms of hearing it from other people, um, sometimes we don't make the invitations that we want to make, right? And especially if you have any type of business, sometimes it's very difficult for you to make an offer to people, right? You don't, you have a hard time with the sales part of your business if that's the case. But even if you don't have a business, just in personal life, you don't make a lot of the invitations that maybe you want to make, or you won't try um, for some of the things that you really desire just because you are afraid of the rejection that comes with no, right? And it's a really interesting thing because I think we have learned to personalize the word no in a lot of ways. And I think there's a good deal of that happens in those of us who have a hard time telling people no is because we've internalized no as rejection of the person. So we also have an equally hard time hearing no because that's what it feels like to us. It feels like we ourselves are being rejected, and it's not that, right? They are rejecting the offer, the invitation, the activity, or whatever it is. But it's not necessarily a rejection of you and who you are. But I think a lot of times we tie those two very closely together. And we then end up in the state where we're very fearful of no and we try to avoid it. And when you learn to when you take the time to look at your relationship with no, and you learn to have a better, more I guess, detached understanding of what no is. Like, I think you begin to get comfortable with hearing it, right? And so you find yourself asking questions or inviting or trying for the things that you want a lot more often. Even if it is something that doesn't seem likely, like you ask anyway, because no doesn't have the same power that it once had over you, right? When you can come to understand that no's are necessary, right? Like it's not a matter of being nice or being likable or any of that. Like no's are necessary, okay? And part of why they're necessary is because they help to keep us focused and they help to make space for the things that we actually do want. So if we're not willing to say no and we're not willing to hear no, um, we're really not making space for life to be as amazing as it can be, because in a lot of ways we're staying stuck because we're not going after things. Um, we're also staying stuck in those patterns of, wow, I really don't like my life or the path that my life has gone down, but then you're still saying yes and accepting those same things that got you as far down this path as you already are. So it's just going to continue. So, what you're missing out on when you fear no is really the opportunity to cultivate the life that you actually desire. And it's the opportunity to expand into places that you have a yearning to go, right? Um, and it's also missing out on that feeling of being really satisfied, right? And missing out on that feeling of being comfortable and being safe sometimes, even. So, no ends up costing us a lot more. Like that fear of no ends up costing us a lot more than we really think about, you know? Um, like sometimes it's cost you that really amazing job because you never actually applied, right? Because it sounded amazing, but you weren't really sure if you'd qualify. Um, so you didn't actually apply or try because you thought it was likely that you would get a no, right? Or sometimes it's that relationship with that person who or at least the chance at a relationship with the person who you are interested in, because you assume that it would be no, so you don't ask or you don't say anything about having feelings for them because you're afraid maybe they don't have feelings for you. Or sometimes it's just like it's this time suck because you have other things that you'd rather be doing and that would be of more value to you, but you're out doing something out of obligation because you said yes, so now you have to go. But even when you were asked, you really didn't want to in the first place. So just take some time and think about potentially all the things that you have done that you didn't want to do, or maybe you wish you hadn't have done just because you were afraid to say no. And think about all the things that you have never gone after that you wanted because you were afraid to hear no. And as added bonus, like go ahead and when you think about those things, like write some of them down, like make the list, just keep going for as long as many of the things that come to mind, write them all down and like take time and count them up and sit with those and see if not saying no in an effort to keep the peace or to be seen as a nice person, um, or to be seen as, whatever expected role it is that you think you're supposed to occupy, is worth it. And to see if, that pain or that moment of deflation that may happen when you hear no, if that's really so big that it's not worth attempting to go after the things you really want. Um, and when you have that answer, like if you realize that your relationship with no needs to change, literally start letting yourself hear it more, start letting yourself say it more. And this can be both in like actual real situations, and it also can be something that is like constructed, right? Like you can tell yourself no in the mirror. Say it aloud by yourself. You can ask a friend just to tell you no. So you can set up like practices for you to get more comfortable with it. But once you do, like, there are so many things that change and that can grow and that can come from not having that fear of saying no, right? And like sometimes you'll get stuff that like you don't even think you can get because technically like it's written there that something's not allowed, but you ask and they're like, yeah, we can make the exception, right? But it's not something that you ever would have asked if you were still in that state of being fearful of no. So just think about what the unwillingness to hear and say no is, like what that price really is for you. And I will leave you with that for tonight. So take care, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye, guys.